Hey guys, I think we're live here. Trace Safe office hours, January 27th. Um, can someone shoot a comment to let us know we're actually coming through? This is our first time trying the live version rather than Zoom. It says we're live. We've got a few viewers coming in, so it's looking good. Okay, well, in that case, let's get going. So if we could jump into the first slide here. So just a quick, recap of what we've got going on. First of all, I'll introduce James. James hasn't been on any of these broadcasts before. James is chairman of TraceSafe, ex-hedge fund manager, entrepreneur, and, all around, very knowledgeable of the markets, business, everything. So welcome, James. And we're getting more and more people on our stream here, so that's good.
Thanks, Wayne. Great to join you today.
So we're just going to do a recap of sort of what we've got going on as far as our enterprise, hospitality, the sports and government, and our a lot of our post-COVID initiatives. The enterprise side, and we'll talk a bit about our future deals here, but going very well. We're doing some deployments. Our focus on the enterprise segment that's 10,000 headcount and above is proving to be really the most impactful sector there. The hospitality and cruise ships, we've had some recent updates and news around that since our last office hours, so I'll get into that. Sports, you may have seen the NHL is changing their stance around the COVID protocols, which could be positive for us, and so we're monitoring that situation pretty closely. Government side, we're actively bidding on several of these government projects, so we'll get into a little bit of that. But let's do our next slide. We've got some of our near-term news. I can give you guys a recap of what we've got there. So early in the week, we talked about our TraceSafe Strategic Cruise Advisory Council, and later we announced pilot program and the partnership with Triton Software. The Triton Software partnership was pretty interesting because we added the head of technology at Triton is Nedco is coming on and working with us in our advisory council. So Triton's been an amazing partner, really getting deep into the product discussion and what's going to work for the maritime industry and marine industry. There's a lot of complicated pieces to that business, and it's really important that you get it right. You're essentially in a high stakes situation. Connectivity can be low or non-existent, and from a product perspective, there's a lot to do there. So huge opportunity, but not as straightforward as it seems on the surface. So we're working with them to get everything right and make sure we succeed at the highest levels. So we had that strategic advisory council. We had a really nice quote from the World Junior Championships about how vital we were to the health and safety of over 600 participants. That was a great event, and really thankful that our team delivered massively. I mean, James, you could probably speak to like how hard people worked to pull that whole thing off. It was just crazy.
Yeah, we literally had to pull some of our people out of other projects, drag them across Canada basically enslave them in the bubble, and in order to do a successful deployment. But it was very important because it really was a flagship that allowed us to really mark our territory, and really it's been the springboard to a whole new level of growth in sports and in other other verticals as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this a bit, but like we had since it was such a high profile event in Canada, we had such a captive audience of people in that bubble that were effectively forced to use our product. And so they were, it's the ultimate product demo to have to use it for, a week inside the quarantine, and then further, a couple weeks after quarantine. So it was the ultimate demo with the ultimate audience. You had team doctors from the NHL there. You had organizers of other events. It led to a lot of great things and a lot of great conversations. And basically, TraceSafe is effectively top of mind in the Canadian sporting elite, I would say. So yeah, now we got our pilot program aboard international cruise lines. This is primarily in Europe. These are European vessels. They're still at the dock. We have equipment installed on board. And employees doing testing. We'll probably talk about a few more of these as they come out of stealth mode. It's really exciting though, and this is part of our Triton, our work with Triton. And so yeah, and again, here's the Triton software. This is the medical ops technology that runs not just cruise lines, but tons of cargo ships and oil tankers and you name it. If it's on the water and it needs to keep some sort of medical record because they're doing long-term voyages, these guys effectively own that piece. And so that's partnering with them is massively important.
And I would mention that overall, our strategy of partnering with companies and networks that already have the sales distribution channels in place is really important, because that provides us with access to all of their customers and their established sales channels. So we're able to really to get in front of a lot more potential customers and ramp up the revenue a lot faster than we could by going after each customer by itself.
Yeah, and I think the thing that is also important is the integration piece. I think from a sales perspective, we talked a little bit about this with Gord on the last live stream, but essentially having the ability to not have another login, like when you bring in enterprise software into that environment, just people have fatigue around, okay, we have another system to integrate with. And so being able to insert your product into a strategic point there where there's not going to be another login, there's not going to be another username, password to remember, and it already works seamlessly with a system that's on premise and people are super familiar with, that makes the decision so much easier to onboard TraceSafe. So we've spent a ton of time doing the work around APIs. So making our APIs much better. And that's something that we've been working on with Triton as well, the APIs into their software, and developing API sets that are super bulletproof, super versatile, so that we can do those integrations that get us into the platforms and customers that we want to be on. And then our last press release, which just came out this morning, yesterday, was TraceSafe Wearables, a focus of Singapore's connected worker strategy. This is really the most important, I think, theme with what we've got going on. And maybe we can jump into the next slide on this because I think we elaborate on it a bit more. The Singapore really is taking this idea of COVID initiatives, things like contact tracing, wearables, and saying these are on the work sites now already. It's mandated, it's regulated in. Um, Now, what can we do to extend the functionality of these wearables that do so much more than what a cell phone can do? They do so much more, from a communications and safety perspective. So, they are they're basically putting tags, which are effectively another wearable on something that isn't alive. Like they would put it on a bulldozer or a backhoe or another piece of heavy machinery, and then it can tell you when you're in proximity of that piece of machinery to enhance safety. It can tell you. So effectively the wearable itself is becoming the center point of a connected worker strategy, whether that's related to productivity, whether it's related to safety, whether it's related to employee well-being. And those wearables connect with not only with other asset tags and other things, but connect to services, weather, a bunch of stuff. So Singapore is sort of ahead of us by 4 to 6 months on all of these things, because they got the virus earlier. They're moving forward with it. They've had 0 cases or under 50 cases for months now. And so to see what they're doing with the kind of the next generation products is quite exciting, and it's allowing us to kind of get ahead of things on our side. Now, once you have wearables that are, the center point of a connected worker strategy, then you can add functionality to those wearables. We're going to be announcing a new set of wearables that will be capable of doing a lot of capturing a lot more data, and not data that we think of as like sensor data, things like that, but being able to capture human motion and be able to do some human activity recognition, analytics on that data that will help give employers more information about employee well-being and all these factors. I don't want to talk about that too much yet. That's a kind of an inside kind of peek at what we're working on, but really trying to make the wearable much more versatile and functional and a problem-solving device inside these environments.
Yeah, what we're finding is that the enterprise customers, in general, rather than viewing, the our technology, our product, our platform is some kind of burdensome nuisance that it's doing for virtual signaling to deal with COVID, which is going to go away, in short order because of vaccination. The enterprise customers are viewing this as an asset, really as a way to potentially increase productivity, uh, and increase profitability, and really solve a lot of issues. So once we have the incursion into the enterprise customer with the wearable, with our software, and with the right API integration, as Wayne alluded to earlier, we now have a channel to deliver a huge amount of value to these same clients. So it's very exciting to look at the prospects for transforming, not transforming, really leveraging our business, which really began on COVID, and starting from infant tracking, to really to creating the future of the digital and connected worker globally.
Yeah, yeah, that's really well put. I think the workplace wearable has kind of been a holy grail for a long time, and COVID has been a catalyst to bring that there, and then it's up to the services we can develop for those verticals, to keep it there and to drive more value. And I think we're doing that. We're doing a very good job of that. Listening to the customers, understanding what they want to hear, seeing it in Singapore, like seeing all these safety initiatives. They have all these health and safety regulations that you can effectively solve with wearables there, particularly around how, there's all sorts of regulations, how high people can sort of climb without a ticket, where on the sites that they can go, all these sort of things. So really, that future of work story is credit to our team in Singapore and our activities in Singapore, staying active in that market and seeing the initiatives that they're driving past COVID with. So that's exciting. On the acquisition front, we are looking at different acquisitions in this vein, meaning companies that can accelerate our growth on the services side of that business. That's an area where we're looking to grow our capabilities, and through acquisition. Really, we have the best distribution channel now of any of the wearables companies. We're on track to deliver a ton of wearables into the enterprise world. And so companies that have developed novel strategies around use cases in that would be useful, would be wise to partner with us or to get acquired by us to get our distribution strength and kind of geographical footprint, from North America over into to Asia. So we just have a question here. Pop it up on the screen. If we encounter situations where customers are getting pushback from workers about constantly being tracked, and whether there's any data privacy concerns. Yeah, we have seen that, and I think it's a natural pushback to be worried about your privacy, particularly about how your employer is using it. The good thing about our product is that it effectively is for your workplace, and it only works at your workplace. So it's not like an app that goes on your phone where it's going to follow you when you go home. So we've taken some pretty careful steps around the way we've designed the products, the way it interacts with the network, and what it can and can't do. So for example, tracking, when you talk about tracking, we don't really have the ability to track people using GPS with our current product set. It's just GPS is not a part of the radio package. And then when you contrast that to a mobile phone, you're talking about an average mobile phone is going to have 20 plus radios in it, GPS, Bluetooth, everything. And so it's hard to know which, what's being used to track you and in what way. And, it doesn't matter how tightly locked down you have your privacy settings, there's always kind of workarounds that these companies have. So the reason why we're getting good feedback from a lot of these enterprise clients is because we are purpose built, and they know that, when they have the wearable on, they're being tracked, and when they don't have the wearable on, they're not being tracked. And so we think that's a good balance in a workplace setting. And a significant.
Wayne, I would put it in an even stronger way that the only thing that we're doing is tracking the location of one beacon relative to another beacon. Whether the beacon is worn by another person or in the IoT case, the beacon is on some equipment. So we're only recording the relative position of beacon. So we're never recording anything else. So that really is that simplicity is what really aids us on the technology side, as I understand it. But from the point of view of privacy, we're really doing something different than most of the so-called competition that is more focused on whether it's some app or GPS, or is focused on location.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's the acquisition, and then talk about financings. We hear quite a bit of questions around financing and whether or not we're going to be doing a financing and what the timing of it will be. So we are growing like crazy. We've on average been growing about 100% quarter over quarter since inception, and we're definitely going to need to fuel that growth. The conversations right now are more um, structured around capital, cap table optimization. So like a combination of debt, equity, and other financings, like other financial tools, credit facilities. Um, we've had some great financial partners that have been providing us with that bandwidth to get those big orders through. Like if you recall, we delivered into um, STE in Singapore. Those orders were several $1 million of parts and material, and we couldn't have delivered those orders if we didn't have strong capital partners that were you know willing to do the work of understanding who our customers are, you know, all the credit terms, the deliverables, all that kind of stuff. So really lucky there that we've had super supportive groups, which has been very helpful for us in extending our runway and being able to kind of focus on product and dedicate more money towards our product development and enhancing our services rather than just spending on rolling stock and parts and things like that. So yes, we see 2021 as a massive growth year, with huge opportunities that are going to need to be financed. But the scale of opportunity that we're seeing and sort of communicating privately to under NDA to our financiers and potential financiers is that of a company that is much more valuable potentially based on that visibility. So I think that's hopefully. James, anything else to add in that area?
Yeah, I mean, we have a financing facility in place where we're able to factor receivables, and that's allowed us to get ahead of the working capital cycle and execute on new contracts. We will certainly maybe we want to do some kind of modest financing to grow, but it's a good problem to have. I mean, right now our team, our phenomenal team, is very busy executing and fulfilling contracts. So, hiring some more people, would help to enable us to take on larger contracts. But when we look at the contracts on the table and the order inflow and the inquiries, I mean, I have never seen a business growing at this level of rate on a quarter over quarter basis. So we definitely want to continue to be able to fulfill orders and jump on new opportunities that emerge. And when you look at the broader environment, the COVID. I mean, there was this sentiment that with the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines distributed, that the COVID opportunity would disappear, but it's going the other way. I mean, the number of cases keeps growing, around the world as it gets reported. I mean, I think I personally know these 6 people that are sick right now with COVID, and all over the world, and yet everybody needs to reopen, and so there's more and more pressure on enterprises to find a solution to allow people to return to work or to stay open. And I think we have really the only viable solution, or one of the only, and we're proving that through our dominant market position. And what we're finding is that the duration of contracts for me, it's very surprising. I mean, obviously we have some contracts that are surrounding a particular event or a particular entertainment production. But some of the contracts, I mean, I don't want to get into the details, but some of the contracts are multi-year contracts. So our customers are not viewing this as a short-lived temporary problem. And if you look at some of the public health experts, worried about the mutations of the SARS-CoV-2 virus and the potential for this disease to become really, to not go away. And so, I mean, personally, I would like to get rid of all these restrictions, but I think from the point of view of TraceSafe, we have a multi-year opportunity, to continue to grab new customers, with really taking advantage of COVID. But longer term, with the connected worker strategy and the new product pipeline, once we own the customer, we're going to be in a position to extract revenue for, I think, for decades.
Yeah. Well, the it's hard to go back once there's a regulation in place that they do have to do something. It's really hard to go backwards and put the toothpaste back in the tube, so to speak. I mean, it's just how does a workplace say to their workers, sorry, we're going to take away hard hats or steel-toed boots or hearing protection or eye protection or any protective measure for that matter. Once you go, it's a sort of a one-way street, and so we've been lucky, and we've really done a very diverse job. If you look, we've been very active in Hong Kong, very active in Singapore, at government levels both times. We just released news that we are interoperable with the Lloyd system. And what that gives us the ability to do as well is interact with mobile phones and the protocols that are on those mobile phones, which makes us a more attractive solution for workplaces that might have guests and things like that. We can or inside of national systems, you have a national system on board. There's a workplace system, and then there's your other systems can seamlessly integrate. It's all about that seamless integration. So that's on the government side. In events, we've run the contact tracing and quarantine management for pretty much one of the highest profile events to happen in the last little bit, with different countries flying in, having the event and going home. You're starting to see like the Australian Open, what's going on there, how technology can potentially be used to augment and improve. It's really improving the experience of the people that are there, which is important. So yeah, and then enterprise. It's going to be a lot of news coming through about our enterprise customers and the moves we're making there. So really looking forward to that. Maybe we jump into the next slide and wrap up with some chat around AirBeam. And so I'll just give a quick intro, and I know James has some thoughts about this as well, about kind of this broad 5G edge thesis. A lot of these companies have, so basically what AirBeam does is they have a proprietary 60 gigahertz chipset that they connect into an edge compute, and which can serve as sort of connectivity at the edge. So it can connect to small cells, it can do high data bandwidth backhaul, and it can do device to device, high bandwidth stuff. And why that matters is because we're not really in a server client architecture. When we move to 5G, we're basically saying a lot of the stuff that's going to happen at the edge there is not going to go from your access point device, your mobile phone, back to the cloud for processing and then all the way back. It's just too long, and you need low latency for a lot of these activities. I'll give you an example, like for self-driving cars or for any of these medical technologies they want to develop. They can't do that server client architecture or cloud device architecture. They need to have compute very close to where the action is happening. So meaning you have a self-driving car and it needs to make a decision, you need to have the compute right there, and deliver the result back. You can't afford to go all the way back from a latency perspective to the cloud and then back to the device.
Wait, maybe an analogy from the biological world. I'm not that I'm a biologist, but I understand that an octopus has like some neurons in each of its limbs, like tentacles. That
Yep.
it has like almost a little mini brain, because each of its tentacles has to act autonomously for it to survive. All the processing can't go back to the main brain. And so I mean, that's what's happening here. If we think about the almost the centripetal energy that's spreading out in the 5G network and on the edge is really with that autonomous some level of autonomous computation is required in order for the what they call the smart city to work.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's 100% right. And a lot of the networks, and we had experience with this with the TELUS network. TELUS has built an incredible LTE CAT-M network that's designed for very low latency communication, but very small communications, not a high bandwidth protocol, more for sort of IoT and smaller things. What we know about the world, that we didn't know probably when 5G was spec'd out and a few of those things, is how high bandwidth and how video intensive things would be. I don't think anybody anticipated having a 4K camera potentially on every street corner. So you have a combination of high bandwidth activities going on, and you have a low latency requirement and kind of a service architecture that's built for speed, and you have this incredible need for edge computing, and you have this incredible need for networking. And the Airbeam story is perfectly in tune with those both things. They have a chipset that they can modify that will kind of expand and grow with the needs, and it's used in a regulated but unlicensed portion of the spectrum, and that has a whole host of benefits. So at any rate, I mean, it's a long way of talking about how excited we are about the entire edge compute thesis and what a bullseye Airbeam is in absolutely having the potential to dominate that segment, particularly in Canada, and particularly with the absence of Huawei. One Huawei, they were so big and so dominant in that network hardware vertical. There's room for a couple hundred replacements to actually fill the void that they've left in the North American market. So this is a huge growth sector. The way Airbeam's priced and the value proposition is massive, and we're super excited. TraceSafe owns a very material stake in Airbeam, and the deal is going very well.
Wayne, do you think it would be an understatement to talk? Sorry, an overstatement maybe to talk about. So our view. Do you think we overstate our view of the importance of Airbeam on the autonomous vehicle roadmap, which I don't. And the reason why I don't think that we're internally kind of overplaying the opportunity is because it really, in order for it's going to be decades before vehicles are fully autonomous. They will need to communicate with the edge with the edge network. They're going to have to communicate in order to prevent accidents and in order to enable the safe operation of autonomous vehicles, and that's just one small aspect of what Airbeam enables. But in other words, the interaction between autonomous vehicles, networks, and the smart city, I would argue that the key is Airbeam. And if we start looking at the valuation of Tesla, if we look at the valuation of all the players in whether it's batteries, electric cars, hydrogen, or autonomous vehicles, no one is at this point in the capital markets broadly is thinking about the the edge compute thesis. But in my view, the edge compute thesis is the key to the entire revolution in that's coming in autonomous vehicles. Now, eventually, maybe it will not be necessary because each vehicle will have the computational ability to move without communicating with the edge. But I don't believe that's the case now, and it probably will never be the case. So I think that Airbeam will emerge as the winner of this race. But what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think if you just think about right now, I mean, I've got a phone. It says it's got 5G on it, and the speeds are a little faster. But when you look deep into the networks, they've just basically added radio heads to existing 4G towers, right? And so the high speed millimeter wave stuff is happening, very, very slowly. And in order for that to happen, they would need to refiber, massive swaths of urban area. And there is, the average additional like marginal dollar from subscribers is not going to drive that capex spend. And so there's this thought like, well, we'll wait, and then some of these ideas will happen, and then there'll be an impetus to build the network, and it becomes a chicken and egg thing. But what the telcos are realizing is that if they don't build capacity, back to the Tesla analogy, if you don't build the electric charger, charging network, you can't have an electric car. And Elon Musk was such a genius in recognizing that. It looked a bit foolish, perhaps in the beginning. People would say, "Why are you spending all this money on the supercharger network?" But it paid off incredibly. So there's a feeling now that if the telcos don't move and don't densify their network, then the promise of 5G will actually pass them by. And all of the innovation will happen in countries like China, where they're willing to spend, where they have new cities and they're willing to, build the fiber into the thing. Airbeam really allows them, it unlocks the ability to densify their networks, because it means you don't have to lay new fiber. You can do it all wirelessly. And so it's a massive enabling technology to get to that future that we're all talking about. And luckily the Airbeam has that chipset, and we'll hopefully be able to deliver on that roadmap. It looks like they have the team to do it, and we'll have the financial backing and all the other stuff. So it's one of the most exciting opportunities we've ever been involved with, personally, and one of the most innovative teams and sort of visionary guys that are involved in the deal. So it's super exciting. But the deal's progressing along. And people, often ask, how are things going? Are they on track? They're on track. Everything's progressing very well. We can't make any public, definitive statements on where the status is, but just internally, the people that are getting these updates, I think we're very happy and pleased with the progress that's being made. And we'll be happy to reveal, how everything turns out very, very soon. So, anything else to add to that opportunity? Or
well, I think I would mention that it's the intention of the board to distribute by way of dividend most of the Airbeam shares that we receive once the merger and the listing is completed. Once it's possible from a securities law point of view, our intention is to distribute most of the shares. So what is most? We've committed to at least 85% of the Airbeam shares. So we can't distribute it now because it's we cannot, as I understand it, we cannot distribute a private security. But once it's listed, it's and there's no other obstacles contractually or from a securities law point of view. Our intention is to distribute the shares on a pro rata basis to TraceSafe shareholders. We'll keep a little bit of it for balance sheet and strategic purposes, but our intention is to distribute most of it.
Yeah, I see. Sorry, we've got any interest in tracking and tracing commodities as well as people. Yeah, I think there's actually a conversation going on today between a major telco and some of our sales and technical people around using the contact tracing technology for asset tracking. And asset tracking could be commodities, could be anything. One of the interesting side effects of this COVID, the opportunity of COVID contact tracing is that it's driven a lot of new innovation in the world of wearables, and both from like reducing price and increasing functionality. And so today's contact tracing pricing is significantly more competitive than yesterday's asset tracing services, and at a similar margin or better. And so what it means is that the companies like TraceSafe that have reached scale on their contact tracing efforts have ever increasing market opportunities in this asset tracking market to actually completely dominate that market because of their price structure, distribution networks, and everything else. So it's a happy byproduct of what we've seen, and we're just at the beginning of understanding this opportunity and kind of shifting enough resources that we can capture it. But this is hugely exciting for TraceSafe and our shareholders. Yeah, Robin, I'm not sure. I don't have a status update on that particular Airbeam business. So Airbeam can benefit TELUS as an example. Yeah, so any telco could use it to infill the soft spots in their 5G IoT system. That's correct. It's basically anywhere where you want to have increased density for higher connectivity, higher performance, and lower latency around your 5G applications. That's where you'd use Airbeam's chipset and edge compute. It's hugely cost effective when it comes to building it out. Another part that people may or may not understand is that 60 gigahertz chips can also be used for radar functions. So meaning if you've got transceiver receiver, they can push data in one direction and sort of transmit data, and then you can add those network nodes all over the place. But you can also configure it so you've got both of your transceiver and receiver in one area. You are sending signal out, and it's bouncing back and getting received. That can create high definition LiDAR, plus resolution imaging. And so that can be highly assistive for all sorts of machine learning and AI applications, including traffic control. And in the case of first responder, first responder has like a fairly niche product in that they're doing weapons detection, but the breakthrough of the 60 gigahertz chipset is several orders of magnitude cheaper than how they can procure it, which means that they can have actually a breakout product. We respin the chip. It's a small modification to change the chip to do that type of image recognition and high density, highly precise radar function. Now that enables them to have a breakthrough product from a price point perspective to deliver this weapons detection stuff. So in addition to the fact, the connection with first responder is really around their tech team and some of the critical components of technology they've built that really complement Airbeam. But that's not to say that they don't have a good standalone business that would operate in a niche of public safety around weapons detection. And the 60 gigahertz chipset that Airbeam has allows them to just blow the competition out of the water from a price perspective. I mean, I think the chips on the market that do 60 gigahertz scanning are something like $10,000 a unit. And Airbeam can produce them for under, in the $100 range. So massively enabling piece there. Are there any intentions to release more material information, particularly in relation to longer term contracts? Yeah, we're going to have announcements around these longer term contracts very shortly. So stay tuned for that. I'm just looking through some of these questions. Give me a moment here. So don't necessarily want to comment on the Olympic opportunity. I would say TTG is a group that we've partnered with. We're working with their leadership team who have been connected to several successful Olympic bids, and that community is a very small community. So I'll just say that, to the extent that we are talking to the right people, right, and working the networks that matter there. And so I think we're doing the right things on that front. And there's so much confusion. There's that we've gone back and forth around, will Tokyo happen? Will it not happen? It does look like it will, and it looks like they're going to take a kind of a vaccine first strategy around that, and we'll see how it develops. We are all over it, and we're on top of those relationships and discussions. Analysts that have given price targets. James, you want to tackle this one?
Well, I read some analysis by a poster. I don't know if it was someone on Reddit or whatever, saying that 9.65 Canadian was the fair value for our stock. I mean, I personally think that would be a low price. I mean, in terms of sell side analysts, there hasn't been any recent sell side research that I've seen, from a sell side analyst. I mean, obviously, I'm biased. I mean, the largest shareholder and, inside the company, I guess anybody would say their own stock's undervalued. But I mean, seriously, when we look at the revenue and cash flow projections and add in the likely Airbeam dividend, I mean, I think our stock is ridiculously undervalued. I mean, that's just my opinion. I'm not giving financial advice, and maybe it's going to remain undervalued, but I don't understand it. I mean, we don't we've got, there's no issue with our balance sheet. There's no problem, and we're going like crazy. So I think it's just a matter of getting more visibility, getting more investors, more family offices, high net worth investors that are in on retail that are aware of our story. But I have never seen a company growing like ours that is trading at this ridiculous low multiples. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, and I think the story around, we've sort of been slotted into this COVID play. And when you if you're around the company and you're working with team members, you see this is really a high growth tech stock that is looking at all sorts of verticals and solutions that are maybe adjacent to COVID but only because they've forced companies to deploy wearables in their workplace, and now we can build massive commercial verticals around those wearables. That's what we see. That's what I personally see as the biggest opportunity for the company, is to be building these commercial verticals around a massive deployment that was catalyzed by the pandemic. Yeah. So, I mean, as soon as the market gets its head around that particular narrative, I think we'll be in much better shape from a multiple perspective, and it'll reflect some of the real value that we've created here. Any plans to list on the TSX? Last week we had a lot of conversations with different exchanges. I can't really say we've committed to doing the uplist. I think there is a high degree of conviction that we should be, on the most senior exchange possible, and we should be going where there's the most liquidity. TSX is a great option. NEO is also a good option. There's pluses and minuses to the NEO, and obviously NASDAQ. So we're keeping all of our options open, but it's definitely been a topic of conversation. Yeah, we're getting these analyst reports. One of the things is there's a lot of analysts that won't look at your stock if it's under $1. And so keeping the stock above $1 is a major priority to keep a focus with the right analysts. Some guys just won't cover it if it's under $1. So we've now pushed on the gas as far as circulating the story, engaging with those analysts, and moving forward there. So That's pretty much it. That's our, we're coming up on 50 minutes. So hopefully that's been helpful. And thanks to James for joining the call. It's great to get your perspective on everything. And let us know in an email or in the comments section of the video what you guys would like to see next time. Always, interesting and good to communicate with you guys and get feedback and everything. Thank you. Really appreciate your support as shareholders and sort of being on this ride with us. So and thanks for taking a time out of your day today to join and chat. So I'm going to sign off and end the broadcast there, and we'll see you guys next time.